Welcome, everybody. This is Lords of Gallipae Games, aka Andrew Rogers, and Smunchy, aka Sean.
Hey guys.
We will be talking today about the module I am working on that I'm not sure what the title is yet, but it has to do with this empire that you see right now, which is Eternity Empire. So, Smunchy, what are your questions that you're going to ask me about this module?
Well, I mean, first, I kind of want to know what we're looking at here. What is this? Is this looks like an awesome map?
This is the map of Eternity Empire, also known as the Lord of the Dead's Empire. Um, in the upper the about the middle of the upper half of the screen, you can see a swamp, and in the middle of that there's a pond, a lake. It's a lake, not a pond, with an island in it, and that is where the Lord of the Dead's castle is.
Oh, okay.
To the east of that is Mount Colossus, which is the largest mountain in the entire world. And it has two peaks, and nestled between those peaks is the Wraith, the fortress, the former fortress of the Wraith, who was the Lord of the Dead's older brother before he was killed in the end of the Forgotten World. Um, so the Lord of the Dead did not always, obviously, rule here. When he emerged into Gallipae and started becoming the Lord of the Dead, he decided to migrate to his brother's old, it was actually more of a pilgrimage to his brother's old fortress where he recovered his brother's weapons and armor. The weapons that he recovered are two long swords that collectively call themselves Vengeful God. And then the armor that he recovered was a crown that is called the Dead King's Halo.
Okay. So, so with this map, is this the entirety of Gallipae, or is this just a section of it?
No, no, this is just a section. This is
Oh,
just the
okay.
Lord of the Dead's territory.
Okay. I mean, what's is there a special measurement in Gallipae that I should be referring to, or
Um,
is it just normal?
it's miles, if
Okay.
that's what you
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah. Well, because I was gonna ask. So, since we're looking at this, I mean, you mentioned that mountain there, Mount Colossal, right?
Mount
It's hard for me to read at
Colossus.
the moment. Colossus. Okay. So, how many square? Like, how much is one square in mileage here that we're looking
You
at?
know, that is something that I am not sure of yet. I have been told by many people, think of how big you want it first and then draw the map, but that's not how it works for me. I generally draw the map and then think of how big it is. Um, but I have not finished mapping Gallipae, so I cannot give you an exact number. I can tell
Okay.
you what it originally was planning to be when I first started drawing this map. Each of those squares would be about 20 miles, but I'm thinking it's much smaller than that now.
Okay.
But Mount Colossus is still well over 100 miles wide.
Okay. That's a pretty large mountain.
Uh huh.
Okay. So you explain this upper half here. Um, what is this thing on the far left? What is that?
The thing on the
Like
far
to the
left.
to the west of the lake. What is that? Because I can't.
Um,
Looks like a mountain or a hill of some kind or a city.
that
I'm not
is
sure.
Midpoint Mountain.
Midpoint Mountain. Okay.
The importance of Midpoint Mountain is that little black dot with the line to a white box is
Hmm.
Flea's headhunters headquarters.
Oh, okay.
So that's where Flea runs his base of operations.
And we talked about him last episode, I
Yes,
believe.
and I can actually show another pic. I can show his picture again. That
Oh,
is
there we
Flea.
go. Okay.
So Flea was once a kobold. He is no more. Now he is a spider demon, and he came up with his he spawned his own type of creature called flea spawn, and they're popular in this area, or
Gotcha.
populous.
So they just inhabit that mountain or that
Yeah,
area. Okay. That's cool.
and that's not only inhabit that mountain, but that's where Flea runs his assassination business. His, he runs an assassin's guild
Okay.
out of that mountain.
So out of all of these areas, is there like a safe area or a city or towns or
There used to
that the
be.
adventure would find? Okay.
In this module, you'll most likely be evil
Oh, I see. Okay.
because there's not much that is uncorrupted anymore. There is one area that I'm considering bringing back to not being corrupted for this module, which is Forlorn Village, and that is the if you see the forest that is to the southwest, there's a black dot. It's the only black dot in that forest. It's at the end of a river.
Oh, yep.
That's Forlorn Village. And that was once the last um, safe spot in the entire Empire of the Lord of the Dead. It was where um, what was his name? Where Lag of the Double Deaths made his base camp and set up his Double Deather society.
Hmm.
And it was from there that Gerd, Lag, um, Tower, and Stinkbug all went after the Lord of the Dead and ended up being killed by the Lord of the Dead's skeletal dragon, Slith Oslan.
Okay. So that's interesting. So really, you have like hundreds of well, maybe not hundreds, but you have quite a bit of mileage here of evil
Yeah,
going on.
yeah. The
Okay.
Lord of the Dead is the most far-reaching empire of evil in the entire world, because this is his official territory, but he has his influence elsewhere as well. Like in Persia, he has a one of his nobles is Baron Gaucine, who um, is a noble in Persia, but secretly also works for the Lord of the Dead. Um, and there, the ruler of Persia, Rudu, who also used to be a kobold that worked for Frunk, he enacted a special law because he suspected that Baron Gaucine was a vampire, which he is. And this law is that no undead can rule as nobility in Persia. And it never worked because no one was ever able to prove that Baron Gaucine was a vampire.
Interesting. Okay. So would these? So still looking at this map though, I'm curious on what we have here in the southeast because I see three lakes, and then it looks like a forest or two, and then some mountains.
Yes. So the hilly area in the very southeast, I'm not really sure what that is. I'm working on that still. But the mountain range that extends up to Mount Colossus is the largest mountain range in the world, and it contains Lockjaw Mountain and many goblin clans as well. I will talk about Lockjaw Mountain in a bit, but the goblin clans are aligned all together with Oof, who is an illegitimate son of Blurp, who is the king and grandson of Frunk. Um, and so Oof is trying as well to steal Boulder Fire back from the Lord of the Dead. If you'll remember my video last time, we talked about the Lord of the Dead now has Boulder Fire.
Right.
And that's what this whole module is about, is trying to get Boulder Fire back from the Lord of the Dead. Well, it's also about the different political clashes in this area, because you've got Oof trying to take over the world by obtaining Boulder Fire from the Lord of the Dead. You got Flea trying to control Oof. You got the Lord of the Dead trying to control everyone. You got King Lorne at Lockjaw Mountain with a bunch of ogres and cyclopses. And they're trying to get Boulder Fire back. And then you've got the numerous cities that are aligned with the Lord of the Dead that are just trying to live out their life without attracting too much attention. That I will tell you a little bit about these lakes. The lake in the middle of the mountains is Trapped Soul Lake. And when the Lord of the Dead kills someone or steals their soul through magic, he does one of two things. He either binds that soul into a gargoyle, which is the fate of many double deathers. Because in this game, gargoyles are stone or iron statues that are infused with the soul of a dead person, or possibly a demon. And then the other option that he has is he traps it in Trapped Soul Lake and just stores it till he needs it. So Trapped Soul Lake, I fashioned it after I fashioned it as my twist on the, I forget what they're called, but the marshes in the Lord of the Dead, the Lord of the Rings, that Frodo almost gets sucked into or something like that.
Yep.
It's been a while since I read the books.
Yeah, same.
So I don't know any details. If I got any wrong, I'm sorry. But the images from the movies that they had is what I had in mind with Trapped Soul Lake.
Okay.
And you don't want to go in Trapped Soul Lake. And that's why there's goblin outposts near it, but not actually on the shore. They're safe, at least for the goblins, because nobody's going to go in there and tear up a goblin outpost that's that close to Trapped Soul Lake.
Right. Well, that makes sense then for sure.
And the goblins,
so really,
and the goblins just know well enough how to get around the lake and into their little hideout.
Yeah, so it sounds like, I mean, so you have goblins, you have ogres and cyclopses, you have Flea and his kin here, and then you have Lord of the Dead. So this set sounds like you've got almost like a multi-faction war here, almost.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. And that's why the module is turning quickly from a module into a campaign setting.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to limit the players to say, this is the path you must take, which is my problem with modules. They're too
Hmm.
limiting. And to me, the difference between a campaign setting and a module is the module says, this is your quest. And a campaign setting says, this is the area and this is all that's going on in it. Do what you want.
Gotcha. So I mean, how would that work in this situation? If I'm playing an evil character and you essentially have three, four different factions, um, how would that work in this situation? And like, what would I choose? I guess what race would I choose? And do the factions matter in that situation?
Yes, they do. And I am actually in the process of writing up the the role and the description of all the races in the area. Um, I have the Cyclopses finished, but for you, Smunchy, you can actually see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If this will start doing what I tell it to, it's lagging. There we go. So there's a number of races in here. All the races, most of the races from 1.5 are in here. So Wolfmen, I have renamed Canine Humanoid. That is a change that's going to take effect shortly. There's boar folk, there's cavern crawlers, cyclopses, both medium and large size. There's subrace there. Um, firekin, goat folk, multiple types of half orcs, half goblins, halflings. Although I will talk about them later, that's a very limited group. Um, Humans will live here. Some dwarves live here. In case if you are a good character, there are a few dwarves. They just generally stay quiet, but I plan to make them an option.
Okay.
We've got mountain folk and plains barbarians. Um, a couple of types of gnomes, and in my game, gnomes are more akin to a type of fae than anything else. So a rock gnome is literally born of rocks and is a large size creature, not a small size creature. Whereas tree gnomes are small size creatures and they're born of trees. They're not true fae, they're sort of pseudo fae. Um, we've
Okay.
we've got rodentians, which are uh, rat-like creatures, and then underdwarves, which are the uh, underdark dwarves. So just what it sounds like.
Okay. So in this case, I mean, if there's a group, there's a party, and they're all going in, and they choose one of each different type of faction, how does that work in group play?
I would say it would be ill-advised to choose to build your party from multiple factions.
Okay, so they would all have to then choose. a
I
faction?
would say as a group they would sit down with the DM and decide what faction they want to at least start with. Because there's a couple of these factions where you could switch sides. Like if you
Okay.
start in Lockjaw Mountain as a Frunkian minion, you have the ability to switch sides to being with Oof. And since the politics is so complicated and backstabby here, you have multiple facets that are technically aligned with each other but trying to manipulate each other. Like Flea, Oof, and the Lore of the Dead are all aligned, technically.
Huh. Okay.
So there's a lot of politics in this module, which is something I'm struggling with, but I I am working on that. Um, and the faction that I did not mention is right here in the center. There's a black dot. It's right in the middle of where two rivers meet one river. That is the Baba Yaga's lair.
Oh, okay.
The Baba Yagas work for no one, but and no one likes them. But they're very key in any of the factions getting Boulder Fire back because the Baba Yagas know how to get in to the secondary castle that the Lord of the Dead has that keeps Boulder Fire. The Lord of the Dead has two castles. They're both in the same geological spot. Or geographical? I don't know.
Yeah,
Geographical.
that sounds right. Geographical.
They're both in the same geographical spot. Um, but they inhabit two different planes of existence. The main castle, which is basically a trap for people to get drawn in and killed, is the is in the material is in the mortal plane. But the Lord of the Dead created a separate plane just for his second castle, which is mainly meant to house valuable artifacts that he does not use on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And to access that plane, there's a whole string of things you have to find and do that I will not disclose to avoid spoilers. And the Baba Yagas know how to get them. And they're the only ones who know how to get them. So once you get high enough level in this campaign setting, because I'm thinking it's going to be like fourth level to legendary level, which
Okay.
legendary level is 17th and above. Well, not just 17th and above, 17th to 30th. The rules do not support above 30th level.
Gotcha.
So 17th to 30th level is legendary, and it'll go from fourth level to legendary level because there's all those goblins and ogres and stuff that it depends on who you start as, who you start under, um, that you're gonna deal with. The flea spawn are also fairly squishy. They're weird because they and we got to wrap this up soon. I just
Mm-hmm.
looked at the time. They're weird because they have a lot more offensive ability than they do defensive ability.
Okay.
So they're what I call a race that is a race to kill, as in a foot race to kill.
Oh, I see. Okay, so So
They want to
you
kill you fast because they'll die fast.
right. So their damage is going to be much higher. They're essentially glass cannons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or like a yeah, yep.
So they'll be like a mid-level thing. The low-level things would be like the Gurgle clan and the Kugon clan. Um, and then the high-level things would be adventuring to the Lord of the Dead's castle and doing whatever it is that you're supposed to do. Or if you're the Lord of the Dead, if you're working for the Lord of the Dead, it could be infiltrating Lockjaw Mountain, which would be quite difficult as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So then there's this whole campaign line that leads you up to that. You're trying to get in there.
Yeah.
So, this I guess may be my last question because of time. But so in this sounds like a multifaceted campaign. Is really what you're doing here. Um, how how it would I, how would I as a game master be able to uh track that? And I know that sounds interesting, and maybe that's a really tough question. Maybe that should lead into our next video. But
I think it should. I think we need to have multiple videos about this particular uh, campaign setting.
yeah, because it's since it sounds multifaceted as a game master, this sounds like there are a lot of moving pieces. So
Yeah.
that sounds like a great lead in.
So, how about with that? We will say that is our next topic, and we will wrap this up for this evening. So, next time we will discuss how a game master or dungeon master or whatever you want to call yourself would handle the multifaceted uh, aspects of this. And I would like to say that if you have other topics that you'd like us to discuss in the future, not even just in the immediate future, but in the future, post them as comments in the below. Also, I will be linking in this video, and I will be going back to my other videos and putting in a link to my Discord channel. If you would like more information, I will be posting detailed information about different parts of this campaign. And spoiler warning, there will be spoilers in that section. Um, so people can understand this campaign a little bit more detailed. Uh, and I will post a link to that in the description of this video. So, with that, have a good evening and good night.
Good night, everyone.